the 100 episode 3 Earth Kills. Now, I just finished this episode and that was a real twist ending. It kind of sucks that one of the characters who I thought was the main character ends up getting killed off, but it was pretty good writing. It was great writing, honestly, especially with some of the things that happened to the character Wells and Clark, because in this episode we find out the truth about what happened with Clark's father, which I thought was really, really good because I wasn't expecting that answer to actually come into play this early in the season. We're only in episode 3. I thought they'll drag this out for a little bit. He'll hate her, or she'll hate him, and at some point Wells is going to save Clark and she'll finally decide, I forgive you, or at least tell me what happened. And in this episode they put it all together, and I thought that's good. She won't hate him, they'll be able to work together, and she won't just cast him off when they're off doing missions and things like that. And unfortunately they have this great moment, and then the end of the episode comes and Wells is killed off by this little girl because she's haunted by the fact that her parents were killed by his father, which tormented a ton of people. That, well, it pretty much torments everyone on Earth because they were all cast out by his father. But she lived the nightmare of seeing that, and the ending, how she mentions it, it was just really good. And she says, I lived the nightmare of your father casting out my parents, and then I wake up and see your face and I have to slay my demons. And that really sucked. And there goes the one black guy who was on Earth, so no black people. But it was just a crazy ending, and it's not what I expected because I thought he was one of the main characters, especially with the advertising for the show. And it was probably a good idea as far as advertising goes because he's on the posters. When you look up this show, it's obviously Clark right in the middle. He's one of the characters. The spacewalker character is one, and then the leader of the camp and his little sister, they're the couple of people that they put on that main poster. When you go on Google and just type in the 100, that's one of the posters. And so, of course, when people are on the posters and you see the first couple of episodes, you think, obviously, these people are the main characters, and they have other characters who are in it, and they kind of have to be because they're in such close quarters. So odds are all of the people will be in each episode until they're actually killed off. And even on the arc, everyone has to communicate, so they'll be in most of the episodes at least. On the arc, it's of course a bit more broad. They could easily be separated. But on Earth, everyone has to go back to camp, or at least they will, because they don't want to just be lost out in the woods, especially now that everyone knows that there are people on the ground. But Wells gets killed off in this episode, and it's going to lead to something really special in the next episode. I'm really curious to see it. And I wonder what they're going to do if they actually find out that it was the little girl. And maybe they will, because she won't be able to hold it in and she won't really know what to do with herself after having done it. Even though she got the nerve to do it in this episode, she might not be able to mentally handle the aftermath of everyone wondering who's the killer, this and that. Even though they, of course, if you saw the preview, they pretty much pick one person, right off, and they do something. I don't know if he'll actually die. Most likely he will, but we'll have to wait and see for that. But definitely a good episode. It's really interesting to see that her mother was the one who told the Chancellor, and he cast his best friend out. And that's one of the more interesting things about it, is because they were all very close people. So even when it was just Wells that told his dad, it was still very interesting that he cast him out. But in this case, it's just her own mother was the one who did it, and it makes it far more interesting as to how strict she was on the rules at that point. And it's fairly obvious to see that she's had a huge change now that everyone's been sent to the ground. She's fairly distinct on breaking the rules and trying to figure things out. But that one decision that her husband made, which was to tell everyone, she felt like that was too big of a thing to risk. So she cast her own husband out and did that in order to save everyone else. And it was just an interesting twist, and I love that. And it was cool to see those flashbacks. We actually did get to see Clark's father in this episode, and we see them interacting before everything really went to crap between their families. But I enjoyed the flashbacks that they did. Like I said, we got to see her father. I don't know if they'll go even further back and show other things from when she was younger. Maybe they'll do it from, with Clark and her mother instead of Clark and her father, and he'll be in passing in there and he'll say a couple of lines and then go out. But I think there will be a lot more flashbacks of Clark when she's younger now, because she'll look at certain things between her mother and father, how they had this random argument or that random argument, now that she knows the truth that their final argument got her father killed, and her mother was pretty much okay doing it. But great flashbacks, great episode as far as them dealing with Earth. So it of course put certain characters in certain places where they had to speak, and I didn't think they would resolve the entire conflict of what happened to between Wells and Clark and Clark's father. I thought they would just plant those seeds, like maybe it wasn't actually Wells that did it, and then they'd answer it a couple episodes later. But it was cool to see that they put it all into one episode where they give you the doubt, like maybe there was someone else who did know, and of course it was only her mother, or maybe it was someone that heard them talking. That could have been easy too. And when the spacewalker guy said, was he the only one that knew, the first thing that came to my mind was actually the evil guy who pretty much just wants to kill everyone. I thought maybe he was walking past and he ratted her dad out. That was the first thing I thought, but that's not how it went. And we also didn't actually see Clark go to prison, so we might get that flashback in a later episode too, where she actually confronts her mother and says, I did this and this is what's going to end up happening to me. And her mother may or may not have tried to help her out, or probably not, because of how strict she was with the rules at that point. But of course I'm just speculating right now. It could have been months after. It could have only been a month instead of 3 or 4. But we'll have to wait and see if they actually show us that flashback. But for now, they're going to be focusing on the president who did kill Wells, and we may or may not see what happens to the little girl if she does give herself up. But she went through a real serious turmoil in this episode, having these nightmares and learning from the leader that you have to slay your demons. And I would assume she took the way she killed Wells from Clark herself, because she saw how she took care of the guy who was dying anyway. And it all just tied together. She learned little lessons, and in the end she had to slay her demons, and she took the lesson from the leader and the technique, I guess, from Clark, and that's how she ended up getting rid of Wells. But it was an amazing ending. It sucks to see the character go, especially, like I said, they made up. I was looking for that nice happy ending where he says something inspirational to the little girl and that helps her, but they're on Earth and people kill other people now, and we'll just have to see how crazy things get from here on out. But comment below, let me know what you guys thought of this episode, favorite parts, least favorite parts, and definitely tell me, who do you guys think is going to go next outside of the trailer, because you probably saw what was going to happen there. Who do you guys think we might end up losing next? Comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.